The rain drummed against the windows of Magnolia's southern kitchen as Maya Jenkins wiped down the last table of her double shift. The restaurant, nestled in the heart of Atlanta's Virginia Highland neighborhood, had been unusually busy for a Tuesday evening. The warm glow of Edison bulbs cast long shadows across the worn wooden floors, and the familiar scent of fried chicken and sweet tea lingered in the air. Maya glanced at the clock, 11:47 p.m. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers, and she could feel the weight of exhaustion settling into her shoulders. At 28, she'd been working at Magnolia's for 3 years, saving every penny she could while pursuing her nursing degree at Georgia State University. The late shifts were brutal, but they paid slightly better, and every dollar counted. The bell above the entrance chimed, and Maya looked up to see a tall, distinguished man in a dark coat stepping inside from the rain. He shook the water from his umbrella and looked around the nearly empty restaurant with a gentle smile. Maya's heart skipped a beat as recognition dawned. It was Denzel Washington. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're actually closed," called out Derek, the night manager, from behind the counter. His voice carried the authoritative tone he reserved for customers he deemed unworthy of his time. The man nodded graciously. "I understand completely. I was just hoping I might be able to get something warm to drink. I've been driving for hours, and this rain caught me off guard." Maya noticed the genuine weariness in his voice, the way his shoulders sagged slightly. She had seen that same exhaustion in her own reflection countless times after long shifts. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "Sir, I can make you some coffee if you'd like," she offered, ignoring Derek's sharp look. "It won't take but a minute." Denzel's face lit up with genuine gratitude. "That would be incredibly kind of you. Thank you so much." "Maya, what are you doing?" Derek hissed under his breath as she moved toward the coffee station. "We're closed. The registers are counted." "It's just coffee, Derek." "He looks exhausted," Maya whispered back, already reaching for a clean mug. As she prepared the coffee, Maya could feel Derek's disapproving gaze boring into her back. She had always been the type to help others, even when it meant bending the rules. Her grandmother had raised her that way, to treat everyone with kindness and dignity, regardless of who they were or what they looked like. "Here you go, sir," Maya said, placing the steaming mug on the counter along with cream and sugar. "Fresh pot. Just made it 20 minutes ago." Denzel wrapped his hands around the warm mug and took a sip, closing his eyes for a moment. "This is perfect. Thank you so much. What's your name?" "Maya, sir, Maya Jenkins." "Well, Maya Jenkins, you've just made my night considerably better. How much do I owe you?" Maya shook her head. "Nothing at all, just glad I could help." "Are you—" "Sure, I insist on paying something. Really, it's fine. Sometimes we all need a little kindness from strangers." "Maya!" Derek's voice cut through the moment like a knife. "Can I speak with you in the back for a minute?" Maya's stomach dropped. She knew that tone all too well. "Go ahead," Denzel said softly. "I'll be right here." In the back office, Derek's face was flushed with anger. "What the hell do you think you're doing out there?" "I gave a customer a cup of coffee, Derek. That's literally my job. Your job is to follow the rules. We close at 11:30. It's almost midnight. The registers are counted, the kitchen is clean, and you're out there serving free coffee to some random guy." "He's not some random guy, Derek. That's Denzel Washington." Derek's expression shifted from anger to something closer to panic. "I don't care if it's the president. We have policies for a reason. Corporate has been breathing down our necks about overtime and after-hours service. It's one cup of coffee. It's about setting a precedent, Maya. If word gets out that we're open after hours, giving away free food and drinks, what do you think happens next?" Maya felt her temper flare. "What happens next is that people see us as a business that cares about its community, that treats people with basic human decency. Basic human decency doesn't pay the bills or keep corporate happy. You know what? I've had enough of your attitude. You're fired." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. "What? You heard me. Clean. Out your locker. I want you out of here in 10 minutes. Maya stared at Derek in disbelief. 3 years of dedication, of picking up extra shifts, of covering for other employees who called in sick, and this was how it ended? Over a cup of coffee? "Derek, please, I need this job. I'm in school. I've got rent to pay." "Should have thought of that before you decided to play Mother Teresa. 10 minutes, Maya." Walking back to the dining room felt like walking to her own execution. Denzel was still there, scrolling through his phone while sipping his coffee. He looked up as she approached, and his smile faded when he saw her expression. "Everything all right?" he asked. Maya forced a smile. "Everything's fine. I just need to get my things." But Denzel was too perceptive, too experienced with reading people. "You got in trouble for helping me, didn't you?" Maya's composure cracked slightly. "It's not your fault. I made a choice. What happened? I got fired." The words came out as barely a whisper. Denzel set down his coffee cup with a sharp clink. "Fired? For giving me coffee?" "For breaking policy. For serving a customer after closing time." Maya's voice was steady, but inside she was screaming. How was she going to pay for school? How was she going to make rent? This is unacceptable. Where's your manager? "Please, don't make this worse than it already is. I just need to go." Denzel reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. "At least let me give you something for the coffee. And for your kindness." He placed a $100 bill on the counter. "This isn't charity. This is payment for exceptional service." Maya stared at the money, torn between pride and desperate need. "I can't take this." "Yes, you can, and you will. Because what you did tonight, treating a stranger with kindness when you had no obligation to do so, that's worth more than any tip I could give you." As Maya gathered her things from her locker, her hands shaking slightly, she could hear raised voices from the dining room. She emerged to find Denzel, speaking in low, intense tones with Derek, whose face had gone pale. "Maya!" Denzel called out as she headed for the door. "I want you to know that your kindness tonight won't be forgotten." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the air was thick with humidity. Maya sat in her car for a long moment, staring at the $100 bill in her hands. It would help, but it wouldn't solve her problems. She had lost her job, her income, her path forward. But as she started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, she couldn't bring herself to regret helping someone who needed it. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Do what's right, baby girl, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Maya drove home through the empty streets of Atlanta, not knowing that her act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that would change her life forever. Maya's phone buzzed the next evening with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Maya. This is Denzel Washington. I got your number from someone at the restaurant. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I wanted to check on you and see how you're doing after last night. I've been thinking about what happened and I feel responsible." Maya stared at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure she wasn't imagining it. Denzel Washington had her phone number. Denzel Washington was texting her. She typed and deleted several responses before settling on, "Hi, Mr. Washington. Thank you for reaching out. I'm doing okay. What happened wasn't your fault at all. I hope you're well." The response came quickly. "Would you be willing to meet for coffee tomorrow? I'd like to talk to you about something. Nothing complicated, just a conversation." Maya's heart raced. What could he possibly want to talk to her about? Of course. What time and where? How about 2 p.m. at the Starbucks on Ponce de Leon, the one near the Fox Theatre? "I'll be there. Thank you." The next afternoon, Maya arrived 15 minutes early at the Starbucks, partly from nervousness and partly from habit. She had always been punctual, a trait her grandmother had instilled in her from childhood. At exactly 2 p.m., she saw Denzel enter, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt. wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. "Maya, thank you so much for meeting me," he said, taking the seat across from her. "Thank you for asking. I have to admit, I'm curious about what you wanted to discuss. Before we get to that, how are you doing?" "Really?" Maya considered giving a polite surface-level answer, but something about his genuine concern made her decide on honesty. "I'm worried. I lost my job, I'm in school, and I have bills to pay, but I'm managing. I want you to know that I spoke with your former manager last night after you left. I made it very clear that I thought his decision was wrong." "What did he say?" "He defended the company policy, said his hands were tied." Denzel's expression darkened slightly. "I've been in this business for a long time, Maya. I know the difference between someone following policy and someone using policy as an excuse to flex their power." Maya felt a flush of validation. She had wondered if she was overreacting, if Derek had really been justified in his decision. "I also want to apologize," Denzel continued. "You lost your job because you showed me kindness. That's not something I take lightly." "You don't need to apologize. I made a choice. I'd make the same choice again. That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you." He leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. "Maya, I've been doing this work for over 4 decades. I've met thousands of people, actors, directors, producers, executives, and what I've learned is that talent is common, but character is rare. What you did last night, that was character." Maya felt her cheeks warm. "It was just coffee." "No, it wasn't. It was you seeing another human being who needed help and responding without thinking about what it might cost you. That's not common. Where are you going with this, Mr. Washington? Call me Denzel, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm in the early stages of developing a project, a documentary about resilience, about people who face challenges and find ways to overcome them. I need someone to help with research, to coordinate interviews, to help me understand the real stories behind the statistics." Maya blinked. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity. It would be temporary, maybe 3 to 6 months. The pay would be significantly better than what you were making at the restaurant, and it would give you flexibility to continue your nursing studies." "I don't understand. Why me? I don't have any experience in film or research." "You have something more valuable than experience. You have empathy. You have the ability to connect with people, to make them feel seen and heard. That's what this project needs." Maya's mind raced. It sounded too good to be true. What exactly would I be doing? Helping me identify and interview people who have overcome significant challenges, veterans who have transitioned to civilian life, single parents who have gone back to school, people who have rebuilt their lives after setbacks. I want to understand their stories, their struggles, their victories. That sounds incredible, but I'm not qualified. Maya, you've been working in service industry while going to nursing school. You've been taking care of people, understanding their needs, making them feel comfortable. That's exactly the qualification I need." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. After a day of rejection and worry, this felt like a miracle. "What's the pay?" $5,000 a month plus expenses for any travel and flexible scheduling so you can continue your classes. Maya's coffee mug nearly slipped from her hands. $5,000 a month was more than she had made in 3 months. "At the restaurant, this is really happening?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Only if you want it to be. I understand if you need time to think about it." "I don't need time." "Yes, absolutely yes." Denzel's smile lit up his entire face. "Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the details, contract, schedule, everything you need to know. We'll start with some local interviews, get you comfortable with the process. I can't believe this is happening. Believe it. And Maya, this isn't charity. I'm not doing this because I feel sorry for you. I'm doing this because I think you're exactly the right person for this job." They spent another hour talking about the project, about Maya's background, about her goals in nursing school. Denzel was genuinely interested in her story, asking thoughtful questions about her grandmother who had raised her, about her decision to pursue nursing, about her dreams for the future. As they prepared to leave, Denzel said, "One more thing. This project is close to my heart. I want to tell stories that matter, stories that inspire people to keep going when things get tough. Your story, what you did that night, how you're handling this setback, your determination to build a better life, that's exactly the kind of story I want to tell. You want to tell my story, if you're comfortable with it. But first, let's focus on helping me tell other people's stories. Deal?" "Deal." As Maya drove home, she kept checking her phone to make sure she hadn't imagined the whole conversation. But there it was, a text from Denzel with his assistant's contact information, and a note, "Welcome to the team, Maya. I have a feeling this is going to be something special." For the first time in 24 hours, Maya felt like everything was going to be okay. Her act of kindness had cost her one job, but it had led her to an opportunity she never could have imagined. As her grandmother always said, sometimes losing the wrong thing opened the door to finding the right thing. 3 weeks into her new role, Maya had established a routine that felt both challenging and rewarding. Her days were split between research, preliminary interviews, and coordination meetings with Denzel and the small production team. She had identified several potential subjects for the documentary, each with a compelling story of resilience and recovery. Her first major success came through Maria Santos, the director of Second Chances, an organization that helped formerly incarcerated individuals reintegrate into society. Maya had spent an afternoon at their offices in East Atlanta, and Maria had introduced her to Jerome, a former gang member who was now a community advocate. "I want to be clear about something," Jerome had said during their interview at the community center, where he now worked as a youth counselor. "I'm not ashamed of my past, but I'm not proud of it either. I did things I wish I hadn't done, hurt people I wish I hadn't hurt. But I also learned things I wouldn't have learned any other way." "What kind of things?" Maya had asked. "I learned that respect isn't something you can take from someone else. It's something you have to earn, starting with respecting yourself. I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who show up for you when things get bad. And I learned that change is possible, but only if you're willing to do the work. What made you decide to change?" Jerome was quiet for a moment. "My little sister. She was 8 years old, and she told me she was afraid of me. Not afraid I would hurt her, but afraid of what might happen to me. She said she had nightmares about getting a phone call that I was dead." Maya felt her throat tighten. That must have been hard to hear. It broke my heart. But it also opened my eyes. I realized that my choices weren't just affecting me. They were affecting everyone who cared about me. That little girl deserved to have a brother she could be proud of, not one she had to worry about. The interview with Jerome had lasted 2 hours, and by the end, Maya knew they had found someone with a powerful story to tell. His journey from violence to healing, from selfishness to service, embodied exactly the kind of resilience Denzel wanted to highlight. But it was an unexpected visitor to her office that would add another dimension to the project entirely. "Maya, there's someone here to see you," Patricia, Denzel's assistant, said one Thursday morning. "She says she knows you from Magnolia's." Maya looked up to find Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman who had been a regular at the restaurant, standing in the reception area, wearing her best dress and clutching a worn leather purse. "Mrs. Patterson, what are you doing here? I hope you don't mind me dropping by, honey. I got your address from that nice girl who used to work with you. Brittany, I think her name was. I wanted to see how you were doing." As they sat in Maya's office, Mrs. Patterson looked around with obvious approval. "This is quite a change from that restaurant, isn't it?" It really is. I still can't quite believe it's real. Mrs. Patterson reached into her purse and pulled out a small, wrapped package. I brought you something. She unwrapped it to reveal a framed photograph of a young woman in a nurse's uniform. That's my daughter, Catherine. She was a nurse for 37 years before she retired. Mrs. Patterson, I can't take this. Yes, you can. Catherine passed away 5 years ago, and I've been looking for the right person to give this to. Someone who understands that taking care of people is a calling, not just a job. That's you, Maya. Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes. Thank you so much. This means more to me than you know. I also wanted to tell you something else. I've been thinking about what happened to you at that restaurant, and it reminded me of my own story. Mrs. Patterson told Maya about her experience in 1963, when she was fired from a law firm for helping a young black man find legal representation for a discrimination case. Losing that job forced me to reevaluate what I wanted to do with my life. I went back to school, became a teacher, and spent the next 40 years working with children. I made a real difference in hundreds of young lives. Would you be willing to be interviewed for our documentary? Maya asked. Your story is incredible. If you think it would help someone, then yes, I'd be honored to participate. After Mrs. Patterson left, Maya called her grandmother in Savannah to tell her about the project and to ask if she would share the family stories that had shaped Maya's understanding of kindness and resilience. Baby girl, let me tell you something, Grandma Rose said. Your great-grandmother cleaned houses for wealthy white families during the Depression. One day, Mrs. Henderson's young grandson got sick while your great-grandmother was working there. The doctor couldn't come for hours because of a storm. Maya listened intently as her grandmother told the story of how Mama Grace had used her knowledge of natural remedies to save the child's life, and how that act of kindness had led to educational opportunities that changed the trajectory of their entire family. I'm saying that your mother became a nurse because your great-grandmother showed kindness to a stranger's child. Your mother inspired you to pursue nursing, and you're working on this documentary because you showed kindness to a stranger. You see the pattern? It's all connected. It's all connected. And baby girl, your story isn't small. Your story is part of a long line of women in this family who chose kindness even when it was risky, even when it was inconvenient. That's a story worth telling. A few days later, Maya found herself in an unexpected conversation with Derek, her former manager from Magnolia's. She had reached out to him, asking if he would be willing to be interviewed for the documentary. They met at a coffee shop near the restaurant, and Derek looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his coffee cup and avoiding eye contact. I have to admit I was surprised when you called, he said. Derek, I want you to know that I'm not angry about what happened. I was hurt and frustrated, but I'm not angry. You're not here to try to get your job back? No, I'm here because I think you might have a story worth telling. I think you're someone who made a decision based on fear of corporate consequences, fear of setting precedents, fear of losing control. And I think there are a lot of people who can relate to that. Derek was quiet for a long moment. Can I ask you something? Do you really think what I did was wrong? I think you prioritized policy over humanity. I think you let your fear of consequences prevent you from seeing a simple act of kindness for what it was. Derek, in 3 years of working there, how many times did I bend the rules to help a customer? I don't know. Not often. Never. Not once. Because I respected the job and the rules. But sometimes the right thing to do is more important than the convenient thing to do. Derek stared into his coffee. I've been thinking about that night a lot, especially after I found out who he was. What kind of opportunity you got afterward. Derek, this isn't about who he was. If it had been anyone else, a homeless person, a lost traveler, anyone, I would have done the same thing, and you would have fired me just the same. You're probably right. The question is, if the same situation happened tomorrow, what would you do? Derek was quiet for several minutes. When he looked up, Maya could see something different in his expression. Vulnerability, uncertainty, maybe even regret. "I'd like to think I'd make a different choice," he said finally. "I'd like to think I'd remember that policies are meant to serve people, not the other way around. Would you be willing to talk about this on camera? To share what you've learned?" Derek nodded slowly. "Okay, yes, I'll do it." As Maya drove back to the office, she felt a sense of completion. The documentary was becoming something larger than she had initially imagined, not just a collection of inspiring stories, but an exploration of how our choices ripple outward, affecting not just ourselves, but everyone around us, she thought. About Mrs. Patterson's story, about her grandmother's family history, about Jerome's transformation, about Derek's willingness to examine his mistakes. Each story was unique, but they were all connected by common themes of courage, growth, and the power of second chances. Most importantly, Maya was beginning to understand that her own story was worth telling too. The kindness she had shown to a stranger, the job she had lost, the opportunity she had gained. It was all part of a larger narrative about the power of doing what's right, even when it's difficult. She was excited to see where that narrative would lead next. The filming had begun in earnest, and Maya found herself in a role she had never imagined, helping to capture intimate, powerful conversations that revealed the depth of human resilience. Over the past month, she had coordinated interviews with 6 individuals, each with a compelling story of overcoming adversity. Today they were filming with Dr. Sarah Chen, a pediatric surgeon who had overcome a devastating car accident that had left her with permanent nerve damage in her dominant hand. Sarah had retrained herself to operate with her non-dominant hand and had developed new surgical techniques that were now being taught in medical schools across the country. Maya watched in awe as Denzel interviewed Sarah in the children's hospital, where she worked. His approach was masterful, gentle but probing, allowing Sarah to tell her story at her own pace while drawing out details that revealed the full scope of her journey. The hardest part wasn't the physical therapy, Sarah was saying. It wasn't learning to use my left hand for surgery. The hardest part was believing I was still the same person, that I still had value as a surgeon and as a human being. "How did you get past that?" Denzel asked. "My patience. The first time I operated with my left hand, I was terrified. But the surgery was successful, and afterward, the little girl I had operated on, she was 6 years old. She drew me a picture of a doctor with a magic hand. She said I was magic because I could fix people no matter what." Maya felt tears welling up as she watched from behind the camera. These stories were more than just inspirational. They were profound testimonies to the human capacity for adaptation and growth. After they wrapped filming for the day, Denzel pulled Maya aside. "I've been thinking about something, and I want to run it by you." "What's that?" "I think it's time for us to include your story in the documentary." Maya's stomach dropped. "Denzel, I don't think—" "Hear me out. Your story ties all of these other stories together. You lost your job for showing kindness to a stranger, and that act of kindness led to an opportunity that changed your life. But more than that, you've spent the last month listening to other people's stories of resilience, and you've become a model of resilience yourself. I don't see how my story compares to what these other people have been through." That's exactly why it's important. Resilience isn't just about overcoming major trauma or life-threatening situations. It's also about everyday courage, about making difficult choices and dealing with the consequences. That evening, Maya called her grandmother in Savannah. After telling her about Denzel's suggestion, Grandma Rose was quiet for a moment. "Baby girl, let me tell you something. Your great-grandmother's story, the one I told you about Mrs. Henderson's grandson, that story has been passed down through 4 generations of our family. Each time it's told, it reminds us that kindness matters, that our choices have consequences. We can't always see. Grandma Rose, would you be willing to be interviewed for the documentary? Would you tell Mama Grace's story? If you think it would help, absolutely. I've been telling that story for 70 years. It's about time more people heard it. A week later, Maya found herself sitting across from the camera for her own interview. Denzel was behind the camera, and his presence made the conversation feel natural and comfortable. "Tell me about that night at the restaurant," he said. Maya took a deep breath and began to tell her story, about seeing a tired stranger who needed help, about making the choice to offer coffee despite the rules, about losing her job and questioning whether she had done the right thing. "Do you regret it?" Denzel asked. "No," Maya said without hesitation. "I can't regret treating someone with kindness. If the same situation happened tomorrow, I'd make the same choice, even knowing it might cost you your job again, especially knowing it might cost me my job again, because I've learned that losing the wrong thing can lead you to find the right thing." They filmed for 2 hours, covering not just the night at the restaurant, but Maya's journey through nursing school, her family history, and her hopes for the future. When they finished, Maya felt emotionally drained, but also strangely exhilarated. "How do you feel?" Denzel asked as the crew packed up, vulnerable but also proud. "I've never really thought of my life as a story worth telling, but talking about it today, I can see how all the pieces fit together." The next week, they filmed Maya's grandmother, who had driven up from Savannah for the interview. Grandma Rose was a natural storyteller, weaving together family history and personal wisdom with the ease of someone who had spent decades teaching and inspiring others. Maya's great-great-grandmother, Mama Grace, understood something that I try to teach. "All my grandchildren," she said to the camera, "kindness isn't a luxury you can afford when times are good. Kindness is a necessity, especially when times are hard, because you never know whose life you might change with a simple act of caring." As the project neared completion, Maya realized that her role had evolved far beyond what she had initially been hired to do. She wasn't just coordinating interviews. She was helping to shape a narrative that demonstrated how individual stories of resilience were interconnected, how acts of kindness and courage could create ripple effects across generations and communities. The documentary had also changed her personally. Listening to other people's stories of overcoming adversity had given her a new perspective on her own challenges and growth. She was no longer just a nursing student who had lost a restaurant job. She was someone who had chosen courage over convenience, who had turned a setback into an opportunity, who had used her own experiences to help tell stories that might inspire and encourage others. As she sat in her office reviewing the footage from the various interviews, Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude for the unexpected journey that had brought her to this moment. She had started this project thinking she was helping other people tell their stories. Now she understood that she had been discovering her own story all along. The threads of resilience were indeed woven together by daily choices to show kindness, to seek understanding, to believe in the possibility of change. And Maya was proud to be part of that tapestry. 6 months after that rainy night at Magnolia's Southern Kitchen, Maya stood in the Fox Theatre watching as hundreds of people filed into the ornate auditorium for the premiere of Threads of Resilience. The documentary had evolved far beyond what anyone had initially envisioned, becoming a powerful tapestry of interconnected stories that demonstrated how individual acts of courage and kindness could create ripple effects across generations and communities. Maya smoothed her navy blue dress, the first formal outfit she had ever owned, and tried to calm her nerves. She had completed her nursing degree the month before, graduating summa cum laude thanks to the financial stability the documentary project had provided. She would start her new job in the pediatric ward at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta in 2 weeks. "Maya, there you are," Denzel said, approaching her in the lobby. He was impeccably dressed in a dark suit, but his warm smile was the same one she remembered from that first night. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous, excited, overwhelmed, all of the above. That's exactly how you should feel. You've helped create something remarkable." Maya looked around the lobby and spotted familiar faces throughout the crowd. Jerome was there with his sister Keisha, now 16 and planning to become a teacher. Dr. Chen had brought several members of her medical team. Mrs. Patterson was there with her bridge club, who had all become fierce supporters of the project. Most surprisingly, Derek was there too, looking uncomfortable but determined. Over the past few months, he had undergone his own transformation. After participating in the documentary, he had implemented new policies at the restaurant that emphasized customer service and employee empowerment. According to Maya's former co-workers, he had become a different kind of manager, more understanding, more flexible, more human. "I wanted to thank you," Derek had told Maya when he arrived that evening, "for giving me a chance to tell my story, for not making me the villain, for helping me understand that I could do better." "You did the hard work, Derek. I just asked the questions. I've been thinking a lot about what you said that day in the coffee shop, about policies serving people, not the other way around. I've been trying to lead differently, to remember that every customer is a person with their own story." As they took their seats in the theater, Maya looked around at the diverse group of people who had come together for this screening. Each person represented a different thread in the larger tapestry of the documentary, but they were all connected by shared experiences of struggle, growth, and resilience. The film began with footage of Atlanta, the bustling streets, the historic neighborhoods, the diverse communities that made up the city. Denzel's voice provided the narration. Resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about how we respond when hardship finds us. It's about the choices we make when faced with difficult circumstances, and how those choices shape not only our own lives, but the lives of everyone around us. Maya watched as her own story unfolded on screen, intertwined with the stories of the other participants. The documentary didn't present any of them as heroes or villains, but as complex human beings navigating challenging circumstances and trying to make sense of their experiences. When Grandma Rose appeared on screen, talking about Mama Grace's act of kindness during the Depression, Maya heard murmurs of recognition throughout the theater. The connection between past and present, between different generations facing similar choices about how to treat others, was clear and powerful. Derek's segment came near the end of the film. Watching him on screen, acknowledging his mistakes, and talking about his commitment to change, Maya felt a deep sense of respect for his courage. It would have been easier for him to refuse the interview, to avoid public scrutiny of his decisions. Instead, he had chosen transparency and accountability. The documentary concluded with footage from the various interview subjects in their current environments. Jerome working with young people at the community center, Dr. Chen performing surgery, Maya studying for her nursing exams. The final shot was of Maya in her new nurse's uniform, smiling as she checked on a young patient at the children's hospital. "The threads of resilience," Denzel's voice concluded, "are woven together by our daily choices to show kindness, to seek understanding, to believe in the possibility of change in ourselves and in others. These threads connect us across generations, across communities, across all the boundaries that might otherwise divide us." As the credits rolled, the theater erupted in applause. Maya found herself wiping away tears, overwhelmed by the response, and by the realization of how far she had come in 6 months. During the reception afterward, Maya was approached by a young woman who looked to be in her early 20s. "Excuse me, are you Maya Jenkins?" Yes, I am. My name is Jasmine Tucker. I'm a sophomore at Georgia State studying social work. I wanted to thank you for telling your story. Thank you for watching it. What did you think? I think it gave me hope. I've been working at a call center to pay for school, and my supervisor has been pressuring me to bend the rules, to try to trick customers into buying services they don't need. I've been scared to say no because I need the job. Maya nodded, understanding the dilemma. What are you going to do? After watching your documentary, I think I'm going to stand up for what I believe is right, even if it costs me the job, because maybe losing the wrong job will lead me to the right opportunity. That's a brave choice, Jasmine. And you're right. Sometimes losing the wrong thing opens the door to finding the right thing. As the evening wound down, Maya found herself standing outside the theater with Denzel, watching as people slowly dispersed into the Atlanta night. "So, what's next for you?" he asked. "I start my nursing job in 2 weeks. I'm excited to begin that chapter of my life." "And what about this?" He gestured toward the theater. "You've discovered a real talent for storytelling, for connecting with people and drawing out their experiences. Have you thought about pursuing that further?" "I've thought about it. Maybe someday I'll find a way to combine nursing with storytelling, to help people share their experiences of illness and recovery, to give voice to the human side of healthcare." "I think that's a brilliant idea. And Maya, I want you to know that this project has been as meaningful for me as it has been for you. You've reminded me why I wanted to tell stories in the first place, not just to entertain people, but to help them see themselves and their communities in new ways. Thank you, Denzel, for everything, for seeing something in me that I didn't even know was there. I didn't give you anything you didn't already have, Maya. I just provided the opportunity for it to emerge." As Maya drove home that night, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. 6 months ago, she had been a struggling student, worried about paying her bills and uncertain about her future. Tonight, she was a nursing school graduate with a meaningful job ahead of her, and she had helped create something that might inspire and encourage people facing their own challenges. But more than the external changes, she felt a fundamental shift in how she understood herself and her place in the world. She had learned that resilience wasn't just about bouncing back from setbacks. It was about using those setbacks as opportunities for growth and connection. She had learned that individual acts of kindness and courage could create ripple effects that extended far beyond what anyone could imagine. Most importantly, she had learned that everyone had a story worth telling, and that sharing those stories honestly and compassionately could create understanding and hope in ways that changed both the storyteller and the listener. As she pulled into her apartment complex, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Maya. This is Jasmine Tucker. From tonight, I wanted you to know that I talked to my supervisor this morning and told him I couldn't continue with the unethical sales practices. I got fired, but I also got a call an hour later from a non-profit that helps students with financial aid. They saw the documentary and want to interview me for a position. Thank you for showing me that doing the right thing is worth the risk." Maya smiled as she read the message. The threads of resilience were already weaving themselves into new patterns, connecting her story to Jasmine's story and extending outward in ways she might never fully know. She looked up at her apartment building, then at the city skyline beyond, and felt a deep sense of gratitude for the winding path that had brought her here. Tomorrow would bring new challenges at the hospital, new opportunities to care for others, new chances to choose kindness over convenience. 3 days later, Maya began her first shift as a pediatric nurse. As she walked through the hospital corridors, in her crisp white uniform, she carried with her not just her medical training, but also the stories of everyone she had met during the documentary project. Each patient she cared for would have their own story of resilience, their own journey of healing and hope, and Maya was ready to listen, to help, and to continue weaving the threads that connected one human story to another. The night that had begun with a simple act of kindness, offering coffee to a tired stranger, had led to a transformation she never could have imagined. But as Maya had learned, that's how resilience works. It starts with a single choice to do what's right, and from there, the possibilities are endless. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind as she checked on her first young patient. Kindness isn't a luxury you can afford when times are good. Kindness is a necessity, especially when times are hard, because you never know whose life you might change with a simple act of caring. Maya smiled as she adjusted the little boy's blanket and checked his IV. She was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. And somewhere in the city, the documentary was continuing to inspire others to choose courage, to show kindness, and to believe in the power of second chances. The threads of resilience stretched on, connecting one story to the next, one act of kindness to another, creating a tapestry of hope that would continue to grow with each person willing to take that first brave step toward doing what's right.